Okay, so getting started. I think the most important thing for the Exploring AI group and frankly other similar groups that I've started is always the people, the team, and do you have the right skills around the table. So that started with chatting with the staff. I sat down with Liz and said, you know, where is the Impact Hub at? Just to understand the lay of the land. It had been a while since I'd come and been working here. So these conversations, I'm glad that was the first step, because the staff put me in touch with Jen Shelnick, who's a member here at the Hub, who had already been talking. She's a data scientist and teaches at Carleton, and they had already been exploring, and she had already been exploring the idea of starting up a group like this. So that was great. So we really hit it off, and I think it's one of those. We hit it off because there's a complementarity of skill sets, and I think that the skill sets that we have was really a success factor in getting this group going. So we made sure that we time-bounded the pilot. So we decided we're not going to just announce this for the next year, because we don't know what our bandwidth is going to be. But we felt monthly, 3 months, we can guarantee we have the bandwidth for that, and let's do that and see how it goes. And then just to move pretty quickly. So we found, if we've got those skills, we can get things going pretty quickly. It doesn't have to be perfection. We can just, launch, see how it goes, and importantly, make sure that we bring and make space for the participants in the learning circle to shape the learning circle. So we didn't want to get too descriptive or definitive about exactly what we were going to do in terms of planning content and how we were going to structure the sessions before we started the group, because we wanted to evolve that as we go. So that actually participating in co-creation as a way to increase engagement in the process. So what we did on that, we had basically approximately an hour meetings. We get chatting, and so they often go over. So let's say an hour to an hour and a half, 2 meetings. The 2 was important because it allowed some reflection in between. So what we did, I'll just talk through now the planning brief. Essentially, these planning meetings, the point of these meetings was to build out this brief. The point of the brief was that we needed to bring our stakeholders along, and in particular, the Hub is a key stakeholder, generously participating in helping us, with input on planning, working with us on communications and whatnot, and we'll get into the details. But we wanted to have this brief so we were clear on what we were doing, so that the Hub was clear on what we were doing, and so that when new folks come on, we could make sure they were clear on what we were doing. So what were those things? This planning brief here, and again, all these resources are available to copy. I'm just going to make this a bit bigger. If you can't see anything, just let me know. So again, a pretty tight purpose. Actually, we started, we put purpose first, but the place where we started was around our shared values. So what did we actually value when we're talking? Again, this example is exploring AI, but you could be applying this to other topics, right? What did we value? And out of that, actually, some interesting stuff came. We narrowed it down to this discussion framework. I don't have time to go into all of that, but the point here is that we wanted to root any conversation we're having about AI and its impact on in shared values, in what is the impact and how does what's the functionality. So whether that's AI and learning was one of our first topics. We had AI and creativity. We've had AI and society, which is the topic that's going to be taking place November 28th this month. So we want to apply that lens to those topics. We also, in each session, decided we wanted to have, in addition to like a discussion about a topic, we wanted to have a concrete, practical presentation where people could take away specific learnings from and draw on the expertise and meet new people in their professional peer circles. So, for example, Jaylin last session on Halloween had a great presentation on AI governance. And so out of that, there was a set of tools and templates that Jaylin provided and did a really engaging presentation. And Jaylin, you can speak more about that if you want. So that was the starting point. And then the purpose, again, was very specifically to offer a warm and welcoming space to Hub members. We wanted to make sure that this was a space, and we put a lot of thought into using the term exploring AI, because we didn't want to assume that people were coming to the group wanting to use AI. Some folks would maybe fighting against AI, right? They don't want to have anything to do with adopting it. They want to fight against it. That's totally fair, right? Very valid. Some people wanted to, were starting, AI companies and or work with AI companies. That's awesome. So we wanted to make a pretty big tent and keep it rooted in a discussion and understand that there are, really complex factors at play when we're talking about AI. We also, and I think this was probably one of the most important things that we did, was really define who are we designing this for? Who are we designing this group for? It could be quite broad. Again, it's a very broad topic. So as we unpack this, we realized we really wanted to design this for Hub member, but then when we started to unpack, what does that mean? What does a Hub member mean? And so what we came down to was we were designing for consultants, nonprofits, and social entrepreneurs and small business owners motivated by social environmental impact and interested in navigating AI. So that still sounds broad. It had to be broad enough that it would be appealing, but it did carve out some areas. So what it carved out, we're not really designing a group here for people that work at big companies. They've got places they can have those conversations, but and they're more than welcome to join this group. It's not that they are not welcome to join the group, but that's not who we're designing for. We're not designing for public servants, right? Like, there's lots of really interesting topics that you could cover when it comes to, say, procurement and use of AI in the federal government, but we figured, that kind of topic is not really what is going to be resonating with this audience we're designing for. So again, those are just two examples, but what was important for this was, yes, it was important who we were, but it helped us carve out, okay, what topics are we not trying to cover in this group to make sure it's value added for those that attended. It also became clear that if we're designing for this group, we need to really provide immediate benefit in tools and templates and things that could help if people are going to take an hour, or actually, sorry, it's like 2 hours out of their day, 3:30, 4:45, an hour and 15 minutes out of their day to attend Exploring AI. What are they walking away with every day that is going to be the next day they could implement? That is part of the discussion and those connections, absolutely. But then we do 15-minute presentation as well at the end that I talked about. So I'm going to, again, this is a document here. It's linked in this resource that I'll share. I think those are the most important points. Everything else flowed from that. We talked about the format of the discussion and how we broke it down. I've mentioned a bit about that. We have discussion and a presentation. And then we put it on Friday so that the idea would be that we could join the Hub's weekly unwind after. So that we wanted to provide that social, let's build up the weekly unwinds that the team, and shout out Scotty and Olivia, put so much work into. So and Talha, as well. So that's what we wanted to support that and attend. And then we talked about our facilitation approach and whatnot, but what I'd like to focus on here is the resources and budget. What we didn't want to do is just assume that this was going to be a free exercise for a few reasons. Firstly, the Impact Hub, there are real costs to hosting these groups. We wanted to make sure we were paying for that time. And we wanted to make sure that we had a good participant experience. And part of that, whoever brought the Timbits was demonstrating today that having something to eat is really important. So we wanted to make sure we had some food. At the same time, we don't have any sort of, we wanted to get going, so we didn't have, we want to keep it lean. So $75 a month, so we figured we could do the pilot for $225, which felt pretty reasonable, but also no money. And so that's what we've been doing. It's about $80 for a session. We use our credits if we have them. If not, we pay for the rooms. The way that it worked out is what we decided on sponsorship is that we didn't want to have external sponsors. Like we didn't want to be going to like tech companies or others to fund it. That is a model for meetup groups. That's fine. That's not what we wanted to do. So what we decided was that any organization that was participating in the group could sponsor the group. So what that meant was Ground Force, I'm a participant, I could sponsor it. Jen is Sisabe is her company, is a participant, they could sponsor it. Institute on Governance, so those are 2 hub members. We also had Institute on Governance, we were piloting an external organization that was a participant that was also going to do a session. So Institute on Governance has come on to do the November session. So that is an external organization, but they're going to be participating in the group, so that's how we defined who was sponsoring. Again, we wanted to keep it very clear that this was a peer-to-peer exercise. And then group name was actually, I think, some people will say, oh, the names don't matter, whatnot, but probably more people will understand that they do matter. It did matter to us, and we went from, at the time, a key example of this discussion was we were going to call it AI at the hub or something like that, right? But we said, okay, well, that kind of assumes in the name that people are using AI, or it's not really consistent with the values of the project. So and this is all credit to Jen on this, she identified and said, what about exploring AI? That's essentially what we're doing, we're exploring it. And that's been like a really helpful frame for us that we're to communicate to folks, keep it short, the name short, be descriptive. So we said exploring AI at the Impact Hub Ottawa, because a point of this is we really want to be celebrating that we're part of the Impact Hub Ottawa community as well. Okay, so what I've suggested here in this is to do 2 one-hour meetings. First meeting, just draft, get bullet points down. Don't overthink it. Shared values, purpose, the approach, budget and sponsorship approach, and just a group name brainstorm. Just draft. Don't try not to make decisions in this meeting. Just get your ideas down on paper, and then give yourself at least like a week until the next meeting so that you can just let it sit in, reflect, talk to others, have chats, feel it out, and then come back and then you can basically refine the plan, get a sample content for one or more sessions, and then have a group name. So the sample content is important because it's sort of like a proof of concept. And what we did, here's our sample content. We had, the first session we were thinking, okay, AI and data, AI training data, and the question of copyright. Example articles, and then I was going to do a presentation on Democracy Exchange. And I bring this up because this is not what we ended up doing, okay? So we actually were like quite a bit more in the weeds, I would say, than we landed. Do AI engines think? It seemed after on reflection as we went through the process, these are much too specific topics. It's not going to be appealing to our audience broadly enough. So what we landed on instead was now we do these topics which are like, what does AI mean for society? What does AI mean for creativity, for learning? And then within that, we make sure we have a set of readings. We always do pre-readings, 3 pre-readings, and each of those readings talks to a different maybe aspect of the audience. So for AI and learning, we made sure we had something about learning in elementary, high school, learning and learning in the classroom and post-secondary. We had learning in the workplace, and we had sort of improvement, skills development, professional learning, like self-guided professional learning. So that was how we get at the specifics, and while keeping the topic broad. I can't tell you what they're going to be for society because those are still in the works, and Jalen and I are waiting. Jen is going to get back to us today on what those are going to be, and then we have a conversation together. So that's the getting started. And the planning brief. So the planning brief template is there. It's a Google Doc. You can just copy it if you want. And we'll move along now. So that's the getting started. Out of the getting started, ideally, you've got a 4 to 5 week launch plan. Like when I say get going quickly, it's not going to happen the next week. There's still going to be quite a bit of stuff to get done, but I think you can reasonably launch within 4 to 5 weeks of having like a planning meeting. And so what I've got here is sort of the roadmap or the resource toolkit, which we've used and which gets you through that launch phase to your first, and then a monthly sort of repeating. You try to have these tools templated and resources templated so that you can be efficient in running these. So the first step here, the 90-day launch plan. And that actually should be more like 30-day launch plan. This is a 90-day roadmap. So that was an error in me typing that. This should be a 30-day or a 4 to 5 week launch plan. Okay. So what we've got here, launch plan. Oh, what did I do here? Okay. This is a template. It's a template in a tool called Notion, but you can put this in Asana. You could do it in a Google Doc, right? Like at the beginning, we were just using Google Docs, so like you don't need to overcomplicate it. The point here being, and I'm not going to go through all these steps. You're probably thankful, is that we have. This is what we did. We found it's worked. So this is a template. This is not set in stone. Obviously, so you can adapt, you could adapt or work with this as you see fit. But this is essentially what we did in order to sort of the planning, get the project set up. At the time it was in Asana. Week by week, what we did. So the milestone, I'll just talk to the milestones in this because that gives you a sense. After the first week, we wanted to make sure we had the facilitation team aligned and the foundational materials in place. So the foundational materials were those like the planning brief, hub buy-in, all of that. The second milestone, second week, we wanted to make sure we had identified the sponsors. Jen and I put our hands up, and then we had talked to Ryan, who is the gentleman at Institute on Governance, and we had confirmed those. And we wanted to make sure we had communications materials ready, because we had to review those with the hub team. We wanted to make sure they were engaged throughout. Week 3, outreach and engagement underway, so that's posting to the Hub Slack in this case, getting a Hub date, which is the Hub newsletter, post out, and the staff team was really helpful in navigating that. And then and get a core group of participants confirmed. If we had like 0 after the first week, we would be concerned. But actually our target was never a huge quantity. We were always wanting to keep this group to really, ideally 10 to 20 people, which is pretty much where we've landed. We have capacity for up to 30 in the room, but that starts to be difficult to facilitate constructive conversation in the hour and 15 that we have allocated if it's much more than really 15 people. It's probably pushing it, and we've found it goes by quickly. Is that fair, Jaylene, for those of you that attend Conrad? Yeah. And then finally, first session feedback. And again, through that feedback, keep space to evolve the model. So that's the launch plan, getting launched. So once you've launched, then it's a bit of a different set of steps. So there's then a monthly approach. So that 90-day plan, 30-day plan, I'll update that, is to get launched. And then once you've launched, there's this, we use Slack. I'm in a incognito window here, so. Many of you are probably in here, but we have an Exploring AI channel, and then this is the Hub's Slack account, and so we use a planning template in Slack. So this, you may or may not familiar with Slack. Again, you don't have to use Slack, right? Like the point here, we decided to use Slack because we wanted to be in one location for all of our conversation, content creation, and planning. So we use a Slack list. So this is a Slack list. I've got a link to this template. You can just copy the template if you wanted to use it. But you don't, again, you could do this in Asana, you could do this in a Google Doc, you could do this in a spreadsheet. Yeah.
What is the template for Slack?
Yeah, so this template, this is just a list feature in Slack. And what it does, so I've got here like tasks. It's just a project management tool. So let's take a particular task. We have 4 weeks. The way we work on a monthly basis is we've got 4 weeks before, 3 weeks before, 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, 1 week out event day. Okay, so like let's take an example. 4 weeks out, so that'll be like after we run a session, we've got a facilitation team meeting. Here we've got in here the an agenda for that meeting, right? So we typically do a project check-in, what items do we need to discuss, and we review and the week ahead and plan and assign tasks, okay? So this is just a sort of, this template are the tasks we do each month. This is a template version, so you can just click Use Template, and that'll make a copy. You can do whatever you want with it. So, for example, we have a November template. This one's actually live, right, where we've assigned. So we've assigned, Jen is responsible for a lead on the session readings, and you can see Jen, Jaylin, and I are having a conversation in this thread about those readings. Okay, so that's how we're using the tool. Yeah. I'm going to pause there because I know that's a different use of Slack. Jaylin? Yeah, so I guess there are different types of pages, so it's a file actually. So I think Slack's language for it is files. So let me just close out of here, go to files. So if you go to files in Slack, I don't know. And then you can add a file, and you could add a list or a canvas. So that's where in Slack it's under files. In this case, it's a list. This template is a list. Okay, it's a list in a board view. So there's different views. I could look in a table view or a board view. Sorry, just there's different ways I could look at this. Right, that's more of like if you used Trello before or something like that. Again, this just has those different options. So I actually, in this case, found the list view better because it was more linear up and down. But canvases are a page feature in Slack. Okay, so we also use canvases for the Exploring AI group. And in this is a Slack channel, so you're probably more familiar with this view if you haven't used tabs before. This is the discussion channel, right? So we have conversations here. In the About tab, this is a canvas. So a canvas in Slack, just think of it like an editable page. It allows you to, essentially like you would in a Word doc or some other doc, add content in a more of a linear fashion. You can also embed things, which is why it's helpful, right? So we have facilitators. We can link to Jaylin's, in this case, profile. I'm an admin, so I don't know why it's not. There we go. So I could message Jaylin in Slack now. Okay, so that's a canvas. And down over here we've got so if we go to, so we've done 2 in 1 here. We've done the monthly session planner, which is the 4-week plan, and it's worked quite well. We find now that we've done it a couple times, we only need 2 one-hour meetings a month. One the week after this, or 2 weeks, depending on our availability, after, and then that one we're just talking about largely the theme, the topic, deciding on who's going to take the lead on the readings, who's going to find the presenter, and then we go and do some work, and then we come back 2 weeks before to finalize those to make sure we've got the readings determined and any final details before we start. Well, we're spreading the word and getting the readings out. So it's gotten to be quite manageable in terms of 2 one-hour meetings a month. That's not to say there's not work in between, right? Like that assumes that then we're dividing up the tasks and then people are working independently to get those tasks done. So that's the 4-week plan Slack channel setup. So I've talked about this. We've already, so I won't, but this, we have an about page and a content planning list. So the about page is a canvas in Slack. And again, I don't want to overcomplicate this. You don't have to use this. You could use just a Google Doc. The point is to have somewhere where we've put in the canvas, we're putting about who the facilitators are, participation, group norms and participation guidelines, some of our discussion frameworks, session agenda, like a standing agenda to give people a sense. So this is, again, we're thinking if somebody's just joined this group but hasn't attended a session, what information do they need to know to decide if they're going to join, right? Like that's the reason we have this. And then the content board, we've got something I want to discuss right here. So part of doing this peer-to-peer learning, yes, there's a conversation, it's peer-to-peer in the session, but where it really becomes interesting, I think, is when you have a bit of a hive mind, and it's nice to talk Impact Hub, you know, and all of us busy bees, like contributing ideas to the group. So the idea would be that if we can have a place to allow members to contribute their content planning ideas, and then to also see how this is progressing, okay? So that's what this board is trying to give transparency into how we're choosing what we talk about. This is going to take some time. At the beginning, as members start to join, they're just getting used to participating in the group. But we hope over time, this group will become more actively engaged in saying, well, I would like to talk about this week. I'd like to do a presentation on that. Have you heard about this other person? They're doing this great thing. You know, that's the intent. And so it's nice to see that some people are starting to do the upvoting. So the way this works, this is using a list in Slack in a board view, okay? So it's the same tool as we used for the other, but instead of a list view, it's a board view. So we've got discussion topics. So this is AI and decision making. These are ideas, right? You can come in here and say, do you want to talk about this? So Catherine and I both said we want to talk about AI and decision making. Scotty and Olivia, if they come in here and vote, then you know it'll be ahead. And we're really going to try to take the ones that are sort of bubbling up. Presentation ideas, again, we do a 15-minute presentation. So these are ideas for things that are practical, tools and tips. In progress, this is what we're planning for the next month. So this coming month, we're doing AI. What does it mean for society? And you can see this is the where we're actually like coming up with the description of the event and all that. And then a policy talk. We're going to have Wyatt is going to be talking at the end of the month about the AI governance and safety, his organization's crisis plan for and how that relates to organizations. So that's an example. Again, this is a way in which the purpose of this board is to enable participants to have a say in what the group is doing. Okay. Coming back here. So that we've talked about channel setup, we've talked about the plan. Now there's just a bunch of additional resources here. So for event registration, we use Luma. So you can check out Luma. It's a very easy to use tool. And so actually, we're not going to walk through it, but it's a third-party free tool. It's great. We've really enjoyed using it so far. So that was important to have a tool that we could take event registrations. We've got communications and outreach. So this is a sort of step-by-step each month how we do registration. So Luma I just talked about. What we do in Slack. So we do like an events and opportunities post. We do an Exploring AI post. And we do a Hub newsletter. So this is, again, just laid out exactly what we're doing. And then importantly, how it looks is important, right? Like the look and feel is critical. So graphic templates, we use Canva, and we've got here templated tools that you can use. So all of our graphics that we use, you can open this in Canva. If you haven't used Canva before, it's very user-friendly, and suffice it to say, let me see if I can. You know, these templates, essentially the link I've provided there allows you to just copy a template and edit yourself. So if you wanted to do, you know, a group on a different topic, you could just grab these graphics as you go. So we've got here graphics for the Luma page. We've got graphics for the Hub newsletter, for the welcome wall, graphics for the Slack channel, all that. So all the graphics we've been doing. And what I just do is every month, just create a copy of the graphic and add in a new image. And I've been starting to change the colors to differentiate them. And so that's all there. Again, this really starts to streamline the process of creating the monthly meetups to make it manageable. Okay, just a few more things, and then we've got still a couple minutes for questions. Presentation templates. So the presentation templates, there are templates for Google Slides. These work also in PowerPoint. Okay, so this is what we do, just gives you a sense of the flow for facilitation of the meetings. And we talk through, again, just the framework. This is important, facilitating these sessions to make sure this is part of onboarding new folks. I'm going to wrap. Thank you. Have a good rest of